Hello, and yes, we are back and revved up for another season of Perspectives, bringing you our daily dose of news and views covering the topics we hope are relevant to you. And we do hope that you've missed us over this last week. And what a week, with lots to talk about in today's show. So today, we'll talk about how the Punjab is finding its voice as Sikhs lead several major protests against a corrupt and clearly disinterested government. Kangana Ranaut, yes, she who has managed to upset most of the Sikh community, not just in the Punjab, but has now managed to ignite protests around the world. And talking about the film world, why are we not seeing more Sikhs on screen? And finally, in New York, Khalistan supporters make themselves heard as good news. Good news also emerges for the New York taxi driver arrested for wearing his kirpan. Well, joining me as always for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus. Welcome back from a week off. Roaring and ready to go, as you said, right?
Indeed, it's great to be back. And together, James and I will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. Of course, as always and as usual, we will be taking a look at lots of your great comments at the end of the show, which have been filling up below our videos. So thanks, as always, for those. So let us move on with the show. And James, what are you going to start us off with today?
Well, let's take a look at why there's a lack of coverage in the Western media when it comes to Sikhs and film and television. In the industry right now, I don't know if a lot of Sikhs are familiar with the Western film and television industry, because there's so much going on with the Punjabi film and television industry in Canada as well. But we would like to see more people of, color and diversity on the screen, and we're just not seeing it when it comes to the Sikh population. So it's very interesting to look over the last several years of people who have chosen to start moving into the industry. But again, we're not seeing Sikhs as part of that group. So we would love to see more of that, because in the film and television industry being such a mainstay of culture, awareness, education, it is an opportunity to really push forward with the exposure for the Sikhs to be able to show their culture, show their worth, show their value, and most of all, show that they are part of the community in that regard. But I don't think that a lot have historically looked at the entertainment industry as an inclusive world. It's been traditionally hard to get into. But now, as I said, with the BIPOC or the Black, Indigenous, and People of Color movement, it's an easier, much easier time to start in, even if it's at the lower levels, whether it be production assistants, writer assistants, background performers. There's a lot of different areas that you can make decent money at, especially for people who are a bit younger or those who are retired and looking for something that's not a everyday project, but something to do as a part-time venture. But there's a lot of opportunity. When it comes to music, when it comes to motion pictures, when it comes to television shows, it's really interesting to see that there is an increase of, again, BIPOC on screen, but we want to see more of the Sikh culture, more of the Sikh history. I think it would make for fascinating motion pictures. I think it would make for amazing visuals and cinematography on the screen. And I think, again, that people have been looking towards Bollywood and other areas instead of looking at the mainstream Western motion picture industry. And I think that it is time to see something epic come from the Sikh community in terms of a motion picture or a streaming series, anything to that nature. And again, it's really, I'm just encouraging people to actually take a second look at the entertainment industry as an opportunity to really get involved and to get involved with the arts. There are so many amazing singer-songwriters. There's so many amazing Bollywood actors. There's so many amazing people behind the scenes, whether it's camera operators and such in the Bollywood industry. I'd love to see them moving over to the Western film industry and really just jumping in there, because I think that there's so much opportunity that's being missed to not only, as I said, share these unique stories and visions, but also just to be a part of all of the productions that are going on within Canada. It's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry here, and we're seeing a few productions, such as A Good Indian Boy was filmed recently in Vancouver. But again, it's time to really see some amazing stories about the history of the Sikh Empire. I mean, we've seen so many about the history of of different dynasties in China and Egypt and, you know, all these cultures of the world, but we haven't seen an epic story about Sikh history, the Sikh Empire, Sikh culture. And I think a part of that is because the martyrs, it's seen as disrespectful to put their image or their likeness on a screen. So I think that there are ways to create some beautiful stories that don't also interfere with that belief. So what do you think, Angus? I mean, you know, we've seen so many different productions that share culture and history, and especially, I mean, the army and the determination of Sikh soldiers of past. I think there's so many amazing stories that could be told.
Yeah, I think that this is a difficult one, because the arts, we do know the arts are hugely influential on people and people's opinions. You know, that what is portrayed in film, TV, really directly influences and manipulates people's opinions. So it is a very, very powerful medium. And those who are behind such media, usually the wealthy and powerful, therefore dictate the narratives. So when you are a minority, whichever minority you may be, you're always going to feel a little bit hard done by, because of course the narratives that are fed through Hollywood, through Bollywood, come from the agenda of the rich and powerful. It seems to be unavoidable. But we're in a very, very, I would say, a very changing world at the moment. The media has gone through quite a revolution, certainly in the last couple of decades, where it's become very easy, maybe that's not the right words, but it's certainly become more accessible for anybody with a camera or a microphone to be heard. And of course, we've seen the rise of the influencers. These are literally people with a camera, nothing more than a camera and a microphone, who suddenly have got millions of followers. So it is a very, very accessible medium now. Of course, the hard part is the mainstream media. Of course, particularly the Sikh community have been up against, certainly in India, up against the mainstream media that is, I would say, almost impossible to break. It's controlled by a very small number of very powerful people who clearly have an agenda. And unfortunately, part of that agenda is to suppress and oppress the minorities in India. So unfortunately in India, I cannot foresee any change in that certainly the foreseeable future. But globally, we are seeing a shift. Here in the UK, for example, we've had great initiatives over the last, certainly, couple of decades to try and grow minority involvement in our media, certainly our mainstream media. And I know the BBC, for example, has actually gone to huge efforts, almost to the point of being criticised for positive discrimination, to try and get a larger minority involvement, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And it has been extremely successful. We now see a huge diversity across all programming of the BBC. But yeah, as I say, it really is for the Sikh community. I think unfortunately, I think the Sikh community is not going to change the mainstream overnight. It's almost a generational thing. But what they can do, because it has now become so it has become so accessible, that there's no reason why more Sikhs cannot pick up a camera, cannot pick up a microphone, get on YouTube. YouTube is watched by billions of people globally. It's hard, obviously, to break through, and it takes a lot of dedication and commitment, but people have done it. The music industry, anybody now can buy a sequencer or whatever equipment or a microphone and record a hit in their back bedroom. Anybody who's got the talent can become a successful rapper. I mean, we have several highly successful Sikh musicians who've toured the world. I mean, full marks to these guys, so they're making it. So I think, the responsibility, if you feel that your community is not represented, then it's the answer is very simple. Get off your backside and be represent your community. The more people that do it, the more those voices are out there. Now, not all of us are going to become influencers with 10 million followers, but the more people that try it, it only takes one or two in the community to break through that threshold, break through that barrier, and become, big influencers, and the messages start getting out there. So yeah, I think it's a very important subject, James, this, and I think it's really up to those in the community. If you feel you have the talent, get out there. And we've invited any members of our audience. If you want to be on camera, if you've got comments, if you want your opinion to be heard, send us a message, send us a video message, send us even an audio message. If it's worth broadcasting, we will broadcast it. This is your opportunity. So yeah, it's up to you guys out in the audience. If you want your messages to be heard, you've got to get out there and broadcast it. That's my message to everybody, James.
Absolutely, and I mean, you don't need talent because I do it, but
exactly. We're here. We're living proof you don't need talent. It's just hard work and dedication and commitment.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. I mean, we're doing a series for Apple right now that's we got 1,200 background in on this coming Friday. So I mean, we want diversity from all communities, and that's the same as all programs here. And Vancouver's filming more productions, and it's a bigger hotspot for filming. It's number 2 in North America, just behind Los Angeles. So I mean, there's so much opportunity for new filmmakers and talent, or to learn the industry. So yeah, get out there and give it a try.
Yeah, and I think the frustration, as you said, James, there are some fantastically dramatic stories in Sikh history. We've referred to several of them in many of our shows. Yeah. And yeah, there are certain, I suppose, certain problematic issues like, can we portray some of the martyrs, the shaheeds? I don't know actually how, if it's a film created by Sikhs about a great heroic Sikh history, I don't know actually what the rules are and the cultural limitations are in that. But certainly, like for example, Kangana Ranaut has fallen foul of this in her latest film. But if it's coming from a Sikh perspective, I don't know actually. Maybe members of our audience can enlighten us. What are the limitations or otherwise? If it's a Sikh created film, for example, Bhindranwale, I mean, there's a heroic story from immediately that we can talk about. Could a Sikh film portray Bhindranwale in a heroic manner? I don't know. Maybe our audience can enlighten us on that. But yeah, James, it's a big subject, and I think again,
because my understanding is that you can't do it. So
yeah, well, let's hear what our audience
move along to the next one. Here is we're going to be crunched for time once again if I don't keep moving along. We're never crunched for time, are we, Angus?
Yeah. Let's move it on.
So the next one is there was a protest over the weekend. This one here that I'm showing is the car rally, the I Am Dilawar car rally in New York. Now, there also was another one in Toronto over the weekend, and I'm going to share a screen grab here. And it's posted on YouTube as well. So there we go. I just wanted to make sure that was actually coming up. So as you can see, there are thousands of vehicles that are lining the streets as they make their way towards the India consulate. And there were people burning flags and bringing up various issues that they have with Prime Minister Modi and the India government. Of course, this is something that Angus, you and I cover quite a bit in terms of the human rights and the abuses towards Sikhs and other minorities in India. But this one here, for people who are unfamiliar with why they have that car there and what Dilawar is, Dilawar Singh Babar actually was responsible for the assassination in 1995 of the Bent Singh, the Chief Minister of Punjab in India. So this is to bring light to the Khalistan movement And to get some more attention, it was organized by Sikhs for Justice, which we know are steadfast in their fight and awareness, but also for the referendum that's been happening around the world. Now, of course, as we've spoken so many times on this show, it is a non-binding referendum where people can vote yes or no. So again, it is about exercising the opportunity to be involved in democracy and to express their opinions and their feelings on that issue. So again, there was the protest there in New York, but again, they did take place in other cities, including Toronto, over this past weekend, and it was all very peaceful. There were no issues that came up in terms of violence or any other problems that stemmed from that, with the exception of maybe delaying traffic. But I don't know if that's really possible in New York to delay it anymore, Angus.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. I think it's very encouraging to see this, and it's very clear that the Sikh community is not afraid to stand up, as we know, obviously throughout history. It's ingrained culturally into the Sikh community to stand up to injustice wherever they see it. And I think these car rallies are just, this is the community personified, in that how many car rallies have we reported on in both the US and Canada? These fabulous miles and miles long car rallies, all containing this sea of yellow flags of the Khalistan flag. So I think it's great to see that the community has got a voice, and it is making that voice heard. And of course, I think it's very indicative of the growth of the Khalistan movement, because it's very clear to me that the movement is growing, that the voices are being heard, that more and more people are now flocking to the Khalistan banner. And I think the momentum is building. And God, Narendra Modi must be actually really getting quite concerned now, because Sikhs for Justice have managed to really rally the troops. I mean, not just with the referendum, but it's also the events surrounding the referendum, like the rallies like this, is that communities always need leaders and voices to rally around. They need people to stand up around which the community can rally. They need that figurehead or figureheads to try and focus and align the whole momentum of the strong feelings within the community. One of the criticisms that many have had, particularly in the Punjab, about the Sikh community, is that there's too much fragmentation. The voices are too fractured. The organisations, and this is a deliberate policy of India, and they tried very hard to weaken the united voice of the Sikhs by deliberately fragmenting and breaking apart all these organisations by essentially inserting their own people into key leadership positions. So certainly in the diaspora, it's very encouraging to see that the organisations like Sikhs for Justice are now forming figureheads. They are becoming these focal points to try and unite the Sikh voice, because it's very clear that the community is united pretty much across the whole community and across the diaspora, is that they are very aligned amongst most issues and most of all Khalistan. And I think the referendum is very is very evidently showing the fact that there is a strong support across the diaspora for a sovereign nation of Khalistan. And I think this is what Narendra Modi and the BJP are terrified about. So, as I'll talk about in one of my stories, it's great to see that the Sikh community is not just finding its voice, but that voice is now forming into these very aligned and very well supported events like these car rallies. So it's great to see this, James. Very good to see.
It is. It's great to see, and I always love just the energy. I've been out to a few of the car rallies in Vancouver, and as I said, they just bring such a positive energy. I love it.
Yeah, indeed, and well, let's lend our support to these get-togethers. We will certainly be reporting on all these events as and when we hear about them. So, but of course, to our audience, get out there and be seen. Show your support to all these rallies as they come up. So let's move on.
Let me know what the next one in Vancouver is. I'll join it, but I got to wash the car first.
Indeed. Well, I'm very pleased to say. I mean, it's certainly here in the UK. We had a huge one with tens of thousands of Sikhs who appeared in Trafalgar Square recently for the 1984 commemorations back in June. So certainly the British Sikh community is very vocal, which is great to see as well. So, right, let's move on to one of our favourite nemesis, talking about focal points of anger. It's Kangana Ranaut. Yes, she's at it again. She has managed to ignite yet more anger, not just in the Punjab, but around the world this time. So let's remind those in our audience who for some reason might not have heard why she's upset so many people yet again. Is that, of course, she's now released her latest film, Emergency, I beg your pardon. The trailer was released 2 or 3 weeks ago, which has managed to really upset just about everybody in the Sikh community. And her latest film, Emergency, is about Indira Gandhi. And yes, Kangana Ranaut is partly a producer. She's directed this film, and worse still, she is playing the main character of Indira Gandhi in this film. Indira Gandhi, of course, this figure of hate amongst the Sikh community because of her involvement, and not just her involvement, she was the main perpetrator behind Operation Blue Star and the terrible events of 1984 that saw the deaths and the horrible torture and massacre of tens of thousands of innocent men, women and children in the Sikh community. And Kangana Ranaut, her latest film, portrays the life of Indira Gandhi. And of course, unsurprisingly, it portrays Indira Gandhi as some sort of heroine. But also, worse still in the film, it portrays the Sikh community as terrorists. It portrays the Sikh community in a very malign light, in a bad light. And it's really upset pretty much everybody, and certainly all the major organisations in the community. And the film also provoked some very strong and robust statements from the SGPC. The President, Harjinder Singh Dhami, released a very strongly worded statement damning this film, condemning this film, saying it should be banned. The Akal Takht and the Jathedar, Jani Raghbir Singh, likewise released a very strongly worded statement, and particularly referring to, James, you and I have just now talked about portraying Shaheeds, the martyrs, and how wrong, how culturally offensive it is. Yet this film, Emergency, portrays Sant Janel Bindranwale as some form of terrorist, and again, deeply offensive. And so, of course, as I mentioned, in the Punjab, Kangana Ranaut's films are essentially boycotted by the Punjabis in the Punjab. But now this latest film, which is going to be released globally, has managed to upset the diaspora. And I'm actually quite pleased to see that in Holland, for example, the Dutch Sikh community have released a statement through the Dutch Sikh Association. They have released a statement complaining about this film Emergency and calling for this film to be banned in Holland. And likewise, in Australia, the Australian Sikh Council have written a long and very strongly worded letter. It almost made me laugh, the wording in this letter, because the Australians as a nation are very, I would say, very well known for their forthright views and putting their views in a very forthright manner. And the Australian Sikh community have followed this cultural norm in a very, very strongly worded letter. And I'll call up this letter because I think that the wording is excellent, actually. And I'll just cherry pick some great paragraphs in this letter. But the letter's written to the Village Cinemas organisation. This is one of the largest cinema companies in Australia who plan to show this film. And it says, "Dear Village Cinemas Management, on the 40th anniversary of the genocide, Bollywood and well-known right-wing hate-monger actress Kangana Ranaut, who's a right-wing loudmouth and also an elected member of parliament," so they're certainly not holding back in their wording, "has chosen to reopen the wounds of the Sikh community by making a propaganda movie called Emergency." And they talk about how Ranaut has been associated with anti-Sikh sentiments and statements and is very clearly a Hindutva supporter and mouthpiece. And very interestingly, this statement, in several parts of the statement, aligns the film to the Holocaust, actually, the Nazi Holocaust, and basically says, look, glorifying the Holocaust of the Second World War and its perpetrators and the Auschwitz concentration camps under the guise of artistic freedom can't be called a display of creativity or artistry. And therefore, likewise, making a movie glorifying Mrs. Indira Gandhi, who executed an attack on the Sikhs' holiest shrine and killed thousands of Sikhs, can't also be accepted and called art. So they're making a very clear parallel here, saying, look, you can't make films about the Holocaust and glorifying the Holocaust. That would be culturally unacceptable and totally damnable. So why then would you do the same about Indira Gandhi and her Holocaust against the Sikhs? And they make a very clear explanation to the management of the cinema chain, saying that every year in June and November, Sikhs remember and commemorate two awful events. Of course, Operation Blue Star and the attack on the Golden Temple, in which, of course, tens of thousands of men, women and children were massacred. And most of them were unarmed. They were there just purely on a pilgrimage. They were children who were massacred by thousands of Indian army soldiers who brought in tanks and all sorts of heavy armaments and literally massacred in the tens of thousands, men, women and children in the most holiest temple of the community. And likewise, in November, after the assassination of Indira Gandhi, the genocide that unfolded there. And so these events are reminded to the management of the cinema, saying, look, this is what happened to our community. And this film is essentially glorifying the perpetrator of these events. And they say that the movie is basically political propaganda of these events, where Mrs. Indira Gandhi ordered these attacks. And then, of course, what happened after her own assassination. And they talk about that Indira Gandhi was assassinated as a result of what happened in June. And, of course, what followed her own assassination were those awful events where men were massacred. They were literally had, for example, tyres thrown around them, the set alight, and they were tortured and burnt alive in front of their families. Women were raped, children were murdered in front of their families, etc., etc. So they don't hold back here. They make it very clear why the Sikh community are so upset. And they very clearly blame Kangana Ranaut. And she's well known for her racist remarks against the minorities and has in fact herself banned from social media on several occasions for some of the remarks that she's made. And interestingly, they're very clear in their explanation, saying, look, if you show this film, then you will break the social harmony that exists in Australia. So they are saying, look, this film is so deeply offensive and so culturally offensive to the Sikh community that it is actually creating deep divisions. It's actually going to affect the community within Australia. It's also generating hatred between the Hindus and the Sikhs who live quite happily in Australia. It's going to create divisions amongst the communities by showing this film, which again is absolutely the agenda of Hindutva. We know this, and we've reported on many occasions that one of their key strategies is to drive division in the diaspora between the communities. So the thrust of this letter is saying, look, if you show this film, you are effectively doing the work of Hindutva. You are deliberately trying to divide the communities. So they make a very sensible and very meaningful appeal, saying, look, our own major organisations, the SGPC, the Akal Takt, the Jathedar, the Akal Takt, they have, and they repeat these statements, they are saying that our main religious organisations have appealed for this film to be banned because it is so offensive. So please, if you don't listen to us, at least listen to our most senior religious organisations who are saying, please, this film is wrong, is deeply wrong. So they finish off the letter saying, we strongly urge village cinemas to stop screening this movie immediately to avoid offending and hurting the religious sentiments of the Australian Sikh community. And the decision would demonstrate a commitment to cultural sensitivity and respect for all communities. So it's a very strongly worded, but a very well explained and a very reasonable letter to the cinema chain to say, please, for the sake of not dividing the minority communities in Australia, please don't share this film. So it's great to see, James, that the diaspora Sikhs are all uniting against this film, that the momentum is building against this film, and that hopefully this film will now start being banned around the diaspora. Let's see.
Absolutely. And again, I think that that's a very well-articulated letter that drives home the point and the concerns. And as we spoke earlier about the power of entertainment, it's both good and bad. So hopefully they can remove some of this because it's clearly just more propaganda being put out. So hopefully they can curb the availability of this movie to have that negative impact on both the Sikh and the other communities involved.
Yeah, and of course, the other element of this, it's not just deeply offensive to the Sikh community. It's people who will go to see this film won't know anything about the history of 1984 and the truth of what happened to the Sikh community over those decades and the truth of Indira Gandhi, again, who history seems to have written her as some sort of heroic figure, when actually the truth is really quite something different. And of course, so those who watch this film will assume this film is portraying the truth. This is classic propaganda. So again, how many times have we seen films produced even by Hollywood? Hollywood's no stranger to rewriting history. We know this. And Bollywood likewise. So it's very important that films like this are called out for portraying history wrongly, for rewriting history. I think... let's hope this film does receive a very negative reaction and certainly a negative reception around the diaspora, and people are made aware that it is classic Hindutva propaganda and nothing more. Okay, let's move on to my second story. And we've talked about the Sikh community and their voice being heard. Well, I'm delighted to report that over the last week or so, the Sikh community in the Punjab have been very active and very proactive. Not just over the last week, but of course over this last year, have been very active and making sure that they are out in the streets of the Punjab and India as a whole to make their voices heard and to make their things that matter to them most, that they are brought to the government's attention. And we talked about the farmers' protest that has, believe it or not, it's still going on. You wouldn't know, according to the mainstream media, who've been very pointedly ignoring it. But the farmers' protest is still very much going on. And the Free Sikh political prisoners movement is still very much there, as we've reported on several occasions, that there's a lot of activity going on behind there. Of course, trying to free people like Amritpal Singh and the many others, many of his colleagues, who still reside in jail without trial under very questionable legal parameters. But of course, in the Punjab, these events are still ongoing, and the Sikh community, of course, heading up most of these protests. And of course, we talked about the drugs problem in the Punjab. And again, huge protests organised and led by Bana Sidhu and Parvinder Singh Jota. Those are still very much at the forefront. So Punjab is seeing a huge societal effort to tackle the neglect of this state. Because we do know, and we report regularly, that the Indian government is I would say, deliberately ignoring and neglecting the state of the Punjab. And its own First Minister has been regularly criticised for his lack of action. And again, we talk about regularly about, well, is he just another placeman of the central New Delhi, of the ruling elite, just to ensure that the Punjab sinks into whatever mess that it potentially could sink into, to allow the central government to then start pouring more of their own people into the state and take more control of it. Well, the farmers' protest, we talk about several of the protests. Let me just quickly cover a couple of these. So I talked about the farmers' protest, which is still very much ongoing. The 31st of August, just a couple of days ago, was the 200th day of this continued, what they call the Kisan Andolan 2, the Farmers Protest 2 movement, which has been partly led, of course, by the Sikh community. And prior to a mass gathering for the occasion, the homes of dozens of activists, including farm leader Sukhwinder Kaur, have been raided by the police in attempts to intimidate those rallying demonstrators. And again, this happens regularly, is that the state machinery has done its best to intimidate anybody trying to lead these protests. And demonstrations have taken place across India just over the last few days in support of this movement, and also against the ongoing Indian state oppression of human rights, and particularly targeting the activists. And thousands, I'm pleased to say, have joined the Shambhu Delhi border protest campsite, including renowned figures from sport, music, politics and beyond. So yes, those protests, particularly the farmers' protests, continue. And the latest one is the river pollution protest. So the Kali Pani Da Morcha, which is the Black Water protest, is an environmental protest led predominantly by the Sikhs of Punjab, has brought urgent attention to the severe pollution of the Buddha Darya, That's the Buddha Nulla Nala stream. Now, the latest move by the Kalipani Dharmocha group has seen an official police complaint lodged against the Punjab Pollution Control Board in the last couple of days, as activists are now demanding prosecutions for the lack of action taken against the corporations who are responsible for polluting this stream, which is actually connected to one of the famous 5 rivers of the Punjab, yes, the Satluj River. Now, this movement is calling for environmental justice, but also is challenging the authorities who have long ignored this worsening crisis, which is blamed for spreading diseases within the communities of the Punjab and Rajasthan. Now, for decades, toxic waste has been seeping into this river by surrounding industrial factories, which has severely contaminated this 42-kilometre long river, this tributary of the Satluj, posing serious health risks to locals, as this is part of the water filtered for drinking and other uses in local villages. Now, the protest saw a mass rally go through Ludhiana last week. And Sikh leaders and activists have, of course, as always, been at the forefront of this movement, advocating for the protection of this vital water resource. And support for the movement has been garnered through emphasising how care of nature is an important part of Sikhi. So it's fundamental to the Sikhi, the way of Sikhi, is looking after the environment. So it's no surprise, firstly, that the Sikhs always stand up for injustice, but also this is such a fundamental tenet of Sikhi. Now, unfortunately, Punjab has been proclaimed the cancer capital of India because of this, due to this high rate of cancer cases, and the situation is just getting worse. And there is evidence that the air and water in Punjab is being contaminated by these factories and pesticide usage. And of course, agriculture is such a huge part of the Punjab economy. The Punjab is the breadbasket of India. And of course, pesticides and insecticides are massively used in agriculture, and these unfortunately are now seeping into the water supply and having this dreadful effect on the local community. Now, the Sikh-led Kalipani Dharmocha is not just about environmental protection, it's a call for accountability. And of course, they are now saying, look, it's not just what's happening on the ground and the corporations that are causing this, is that it's political leaders are the ones who should be taking responsibility for this. And the Sikh-led Kalipani Dharmocha is saying to the politicians, look, you have to take responsibility for this, is that you must do something about this. And Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann previously laid the foundation for a water treatment plant, a project that remains ongoing, but as of yet, unsurprisingly, remains inoperative. And leaders in this project are offering excuses and shift blame onto officers. So again, it's a blame shifting exercise from the politicians. Oh, it's not me, it's somebody else's fault. Well, somebody has to stand up and take responsibility. And MP Malvinder Singh Kang has publicly exposed confirmed violations by textile and dyeing industries, which again remain unchallenged. And according to Kang, these industries have flagrantly disregarded environmental guidelines, contributing massively to the pollution of this river. And Kang has also called for urgent action against officials who have failed in their duty to enforce regulations, questioning how long it will take for, yes, Punjab's Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann to address the crisis. Again, it's a politician's failure. So the Pani Dharmocha has issued a clear warning, and get this, if the government does not take immediate action within 2 weeks, the community will take matters into their own hands, including plans to shut down the toxic drain on the 15th of September. So it's a very clear message from the Sikh community to the political leaders in both the Punjab and central government. Do something about this or face the consequences. I would say that's a pretty ominous warning, isn't it, James?
I would say it is. This is a problem that's been going on for decades. And although the government of India has come out and, called out these people only when there's international attention, which they seem to do. But as soon as the international eyes are turned away, of course, so does the enforcement and any type of crackdown on these companies. As you said, textiles, chemicals, they've been dumping into these rivers and streams for decades, and it's just atrocious. If you watch some of the documentaries and you see the rivers, and the impacts on the communities downstream and the wildlife oh, it's just horrific, Angus. I've watched many documentaries on this and been following this for years, and it's just horrific.
Yeah, and of course, Punjab, the state of 5 rivers. Water resources are one of the key fundamental natural resources of the Punjab and northwest India. And it is, firstly, it's appalling that industry has been allowed to contaminate and poison these vital resources that don't just affect Punjab, they affect anywhere downstream where this water is used. So people are literally dying on a daily basis by this appalling neglect and mismanagement. But of course, the buck stops the politicians. It is a failure of politicians. One very simple answer to this is replace the politicians. And of course, the one answer to that is never more has a state of Khalistan been called for, because clearly central government in India is failing the people of northwest India fundamentally. People are literally dying on a daily basis. So there is a very clear failure by central government. So it's unsurprising that the people of the Punjab and northwest India are calling for independence and saying, look, you are failing us. You cannot manage our states properly. We want to control our own states. We want to put our own people in power. We want to make our own decisions. We need the ability to control our natural resources, to control the corporations that operate within our states, to stop them killing us, killing our children, killing our people with their poisons that they are pouring into our rivers and into our streams. So, yeah, I would say, James, a very clear message from the Punjab is let's get rid of central government. We need our own government. We need Khalistan more than ever.
Yeah, and that's a great stand. I love that they are taking such a very rapid but firm stance on this. It's good to see.
Yeah, so well done to those in the Punjab, and for those few members of our audience who are in the Punjab, well done to you. Get out there, get your voices heard, get everybody in your community out there, out onto the streets. Nothing will ever change if you sit at home. You rally as many people as you can to join these protests. It's people power that will change things. So get out there, get your voices heard, and well done to those who've been out there protesting, whether it's a farmers' protest, it's protesting against drugs, or it's protesting against the political failures. Nothing changes unless you get out there and get your voice heard. So well done to you all who've been doing that.
That's right.
Okay, let's finish the news stories with a story that is great news. I'm pleased to report. I have to say, it's unsurprising to report. For those of us who are in our regular audience, you'll know that we covered a story of this New York taxi driver who was arrested outside JFK Airport in New York for carrying his kirpan. Somebody in the airport took offence to seeing a taxi driver, a traditional Sikh, wearing his kirpan, one of the 5Ks. He wasn't wearing it in any offensive manner. It was certainly not being shown as any weapon. It was literally a piece of cultural identity and religious identity. And he was arrested, and it caused a huge hoo-ha locally. And of course, the Sikh community stood up and said, hang on, no, you cannot do this. This is part of our religious identity. And unsurprisingly, charges, police report that the man who was arrested last month, the charges have been dropped. The Port Authority Police of New York and New Jersey said that they have dismissed all charges. And it is totally unsurprising because, of course, as we said at the time when we reported this story, that it all comes back to a famous and well-known test case and a precedent that was set in January 1986, I believe. It was the People versus Singh, in which a very similar situation is that a Sikh who was wearing his kirpan was arrested. It went to court. The trial judge basically said, look, no, it's perfectly okay for any Sikh to wear his kirpan as long as it is not clearly being used in any violent manner. In other words, it's clearly not being used to be used as a weapon other than a religious identity piece. So, very pleased to report that, James. I think it's unsurprising, really, isn't it?
Well, and it's sad that it happened in the first place, but there is a bright side, and that is that it's brought a lot of awareness and cultural awareness, religious awareness, and the law. So it's good that it was able to bring some education to those that are in power. But again, it's also sad that it needed to be they needed that education to start with.
Indeed. And I think if nothing else, this case actually, although obviously a pretty unpleasant experience for the Sikh involved, it has actually highlighted again to a wider audience that, it's made people more aware that the Kirpan is an essential part of being a Sikh member of the community. And so people will actually now start looking out for Kirpans, people who weren't aware that even the Kirpan existed. So when they see a Sikh in the street, they might sort of glance down and say, oh, look, there's a Kirpan. Again, it's all part of this general awareness campaign. It's making more and more people aware of what it is to be a Sikh, what it means, and what the Kirpan and the 5Ks are all about. So, the upside, the silver lining, shall we say, of this story is it has brought more awareness to a wider audience of what it means to be a Sikh and what it's all about. Right. So, okay, let's move on to our comment section. And as always, a big thank you to each and every one of you who has made a comment on our stories. So let's rush into today's set of comments. And the podcast I did last week, or was it the week before? Time flies so quickly. Colonel Singh, a retired member of the US Army, is an expert on many things Sikh, but of course he has done a huge amount of research into the Indian Constitution and is one of the very few people in the world actually who has read most of the documentation, the 11,000 plus pages that went into the background and the creation of the Indian Constitution. So he's one of the very few people who can actually talk knowledgeably and is qualified to talk about the Indian Constitution and what it really means and what went into the creation of it. And it evoked many comments, actually, I would say 99% of which were very supportive. Many comments said, wow, we didn't know about many of this. It was a very educational interview. But we did have one comment from Rowan CH07 who said, I'm sorry to say the Colonel's wrong. The Constitution of India is fundamentally against the philosophy and spirituality of Indian civilization. So how can you say it's a Hindu scripture? Well, in this podcast, Colonel Singh did say that the Constitution has become an almost religious document for particularly the Hindu and Hindutva part of Indian society. It's become such a revered document. And this commenter says, no, actually, totally disagrees with that. And this person says, if anything, the Constitution is a minority scripture as it provides excessive rights to minorities, the Muslims, Christians and Sikhs, over the majority population. Well, that is an interesting interpretation. Because actually, I would disagree with this, but I'm no expert. But certainly Colonel Singh, I think you will find, will vehemently disagree with this. And what I would say to this comment is, thank you for the comment, but wait, we have more from Colonel Singh as we have a whole series of interviews looking at different parts of the Constitution. And so keep watching the channel, keep watching our next podcast with Colonel Singh, because I think he's going to cover this and he will explain to you very clearly why actually he will disagree with this comment and make it very clear. And he will set out the evidence. I mean, don't just take my word for it, but he will set out the evidence of why actually your comment is misinterprets the Constitution and explains why. So I would say stay tuned to these podcasts. And SSWWAF says, and refers to the thumbnail here, where the thumbnail says, Stalin's baby, basically India, and certainly the Indian Constitution was Stalin's baby, because as we referred to in the podcast, Colonel Singh says that the Indian Constitution was actually directed and contains essentially the central tenets of communism, and as was a deliberate result of interference and influence by the KGB and of course the Soviet Union at the time in 1947 to 1950. And hence Stalin's baby. But this is an interesting comment where you say, I thought it was England's baby. Well, that's actually a very good comment. India, in many ways, was England's, or I'd say the Great Britain's baby, because it was obviously a part of the part of the British Empire. And in many ways, I think you're right. India, as it stands today, is essentially a baby of the British Empire. Its boundaries are dictated as it was by the British Empire, and thus obviously what happened through partition. So yeah, I think it's playing with nuances there, James. I think it's England's baby, it's Soviet Union's baby. I would say the India of today is the product of 1947, and clearly influences there were, of course, the British Empire, there were from the Soviet Union, but of course I would say it was very much the baby of the Indian ruling elite who wrote the Indian Constitution, who created partitioned in many ways themselves and dictated the current structure of India. Any thoughts, James?
And, I would say that more likely it's Canada that's England's biggest baby.
Well, I would say that Great Britain is a proud parent, if that is the case, James.
That's right.
Okay, and the final comment on the podcast, Robbie says, great interview, need more videos. Well, thank you for the comment. And as I said earlier, I'm very pleased to say that Colonel Singh will be a returning guest on a regular basis, and particularly this series about the Constitution. He is a very well-read and a very educated gentleman who is very well qualified to talk about the Indian Constitution. So yes, there will be plenty more videos examining some very interesting parts of the Indian Constitution. Very revealing, I would say. Right, oh, so many comments about our favourite Kangana Ranaut. Wow, unsurprisingly, James, we had a really, I would say, quite a forceful and quite an opinionated reaction from our audience. Who could have predicted it, eh? So Growell, one of our regulars, says, Kangana, I think this comment holds back to say is just a mischievous character. I would say she's a lot worse than that. And a completely failed actress. She started promoting the Hindutva agenda a long time ago for political gains. And she's been successful. Yeah, absolutely. She spits venom, particularly about the Hindutva agenda. And he says that the film is funded by, obviously, a politically motivated financier. Yeah, I think it's unsurprising this. And BJP always opposes Congress. Absolutely. Yeah, of course, they are political enemies, including Indira Gandhi. But when it comes in regards to the Sikhs, Indira Gandhi becomes their hero. Yeah, clearly that the BJP has essentially aligned with Congress when it comes to turning their hatred and their oppression against the Sikh community. And I think that the point here is very clear, James. About what you talked about earlier, is that, yeah, Bollywood is controlled by some very wealthy individuals who, and several of whom clearly follow a Hindutva agenda. It's those with the money control the narrative, control the message. And I think Growell here is very, very rightly saying is that Kangana Ranaut she's just a political tool. She's a pawn in this game. And it's the wealthy financiers who are funding these films.
Yeah, absolutely, and the power that they wield, it can be a dangerous thing.
Yeah, it's the head of the snake, and I think the only way to change the narrative of Bollywood is you've got to change the head of the snake. It's as simple as that. Kangana Ranaut is this figure that has become reviled across the community, and rightly so. But she's just a tool, just another pawn of the head of the serpent, basically. And user SG something or other says, talks about Kangana, and actually this is an interesting comment, and claims that she slapped her own father when she's growing up. And her father clearly tried to control her and tried to bring her up properly. And she repaid her father by slapping him. So, and as you rightly say, how can she respect anyone else if she can't even respect her own parents? So, yeah, an interesting story. I didn't know this, that apparently she slapped her own father. So if she's going to slap her own father, she's certainly going to not respect anybody else. And you claim that she's the mistress of Modi, Ajit Doval, and all the stooges running the Indian government. Absolutely. And she's now protected. They are but using her. But yeah, one day she's going to get dumped when she becomes no longer needed. And I think, yeah, this follows that last point, is that, yeah, she is just a tool of the Indian establishment, particularly Ajit Doval, Narendra Modi, the RSS, essentially. They are using her. She's a very influential figure, but one day she's going to lose that power and she's just going to be cast aside like many of these people are. But it doesn't matter because she'll be replaced by the next pretty thing to come along, the next shiny thing that will come along. And again, it comes back to the head of the serpent. It doesn't matter who the tool is, who the shiny, pretty face is on screen. It's what's behind it. It's what's controlling the narrative. That's what needs to be changed.
Yeah, they're
Cruella.
Just puppets.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cruella follows the same theme. So we've got to make sure that the movie doesn't get released. That's what we're trying to do. That's certainly what the diaspora is trying to do outside of India. And very clearly, I think, Cruella, it's very encouraging to see that the diaspora is mobilising across the Western world, particularly, and Australia. to try and get this film banned and certainly try and stop people to watch this film. She is very discriminating. She is, of course, from the Hindu background. She is a mouthpiece of the RSS. The movie is Indian propaganda. Of course it is. We know that. If an American actor, and Cruella makes the point, that if it was a Western actor or actress doing the same thing, it's unlikely that they would get jobs. And I think actually this is true to some degree. I think and we talked about the Holocaust, James, I think if any well-known actor or actress in the West tried to make a film glorifying, let's say, Adolf Hitler, for example, I think they'd find it very hard to find funding.
Oh, and people would be distancing themselves for future projects, and they'd be blacklisted almost instantly. Yeah,
I think it's very clear. So a very good point from Cruella. And then Kuljit says she's doing everything on the directions of Modi or India, who do not consider Sikhs as equal citizens of India. And I think the key point here is equal citizens of India. I think it's very clear from every side that we look at things, whether it's the media, politics, the economy, whatever, society, for some reason, the Sikhs are seen as second-class citizens in India. Why? That's a question I regularly ask in all my podcasts and of all the guests that I bring on. Why is it the Sikh community is seen as second-class citizens in India? And I think the common theme, the common answer I get back is very clearly the Sikhs are just about the only community who have the courage to stand up against oppression and injustice, and therefore are the only community who are a genuine and direct threat to the ruling elite of India, who've had it so comfortable since 1947. And it's only the Sikh community who have the courage to stand up and say, no, this is not right, that you are ruling India for your own benefits and not for the benefits of everybody else. And that's why I think they are seen and treated as second-class citizens, James. I think that's the case.
Absolutely, and let's not forget that India did make a lot of promises prior to the Constitution being implemented that they basically threw right out the window when it came time to sign and to implement a constitution after the partition. So, I think they're fearful that if Khalistan was to be there, it would not only challenge their authority in terms of equal rights for everyone, but also just a lot of control that India doesn't want to give up, because that's what it's all about. It's about controlling people, especially minorities.
Exactly. And I think in 1947, between 47 and 49, the Sikhs were made these huge promises. You'll get autonomy, etc. Primarily because the Indian elite, the Brahmins, knew full well what they were doing. They knew that the Sikhs were a potentially very powerful force within the future India, and they needed to get the Sikhs on side, firstly to get the constitution in place so that they could put the Sikh community in exactly the place they needed them. In other words, under full control of the ruling elite. They played a very clever game. The Sikhs fell for it, unfortunately. They fell into that trap. And now the Sikhs ever since have found themselves in this box within which the ruling elite of India can now keep the lid on and control them. So the only answer, as we keep saying, is, the Sikh community has to now find its voice, has to find its democratic voice and its peaceful voice, but it has to get back control of its own destiny. Right, and then more comments. 1S1N2 said, this is an interesting comment, how many of our community, and we've been talking about the Sikhs standing up for their rights in their community, but this person makes the point, well, how many of our community are supporting Zee TV, one of the major mainstream outlets, and other Indian channels that regularly offend Sikhs deliberately? Actually, a good question. I don't know why. I don't know how many of the community are watching these mainstream channels, but one has to question why. I think, James, it's very... I guess it's probably explained by the fact that they switch on their television or whatever device they watch these things on, and what's fed to them, first of all, are the mainstream channels. It's the same here in the West. We switch on the TV. Channel 1 is the BBC. Yeah, now the BBC has been criticised for being very left-wing, amongst many other things. So, of course, people then by default to the mainstream channel. And I think this is probably the case in India, where, the mainstream channels are the first channels that come on when you turn on your TV. They are the most accessible. They are the easiest to access. That's probably why. It takes an effort to go out and search out channels like us, for example. And I guess it's the same in Canada, James.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the CBC that we see the same challenges that people bring up when it comes to the BBC over in your world. And but again, it's about the money. It's about the dollar signs. And when they are going intentionally to offend the Sikhs, they are catering and pandering to a certain audience that's watching. And that brings in advertising revenue. It's, again, all about the almighty dollar and about power and propaganda. And you know that there's money behind the scenes coming in from other sources that you may not be aware of. So.
Indeed. And I think it's the trouble is it's very hard to go out to get independent news. It takes an effort to go out there to get a different narrative that isn't fed to you by the mainstream. Yeah. So, channels like us, there's many channels like us who are out there trying to get the truth out and trying to get an alternative narrative out there to what is fed, particularly to India. But and of course the tech giants do their very best to hide people like us, as we've talked about on a regular basis, is that we are shadow banned. Many comments are removed by those in power and in control. It takes a very big effort for people. And of course knowledge, it takes technical knowledge for people. If you're from an older generation who might not be very tech savvy, how are they going to find channels like us? Because they don't know how to search for independent channels like us. So unfortunately, it's up to people in our audience, it's up to you guys to go out there and spread the word. It's word of mouth, and tell people, particularly the older generation, who might be watching ZTV or ANI or all these other mainstream Indian outlets. Did you know that there are other news channels out there that actually tell the truth, that you are being fed a bit of a narrative that might not be the truth? So. Okay, let's rush on to the next comment. Hap B makes a very relevant point here, and saying we talked about Amritpal Singh, War is Punjab Day, and Pakistan and the Pakistan intelligence services. This refers back to a comment that we've had, and actually many comments that we've had in the past, saying, we are a Pakistan-funded channel, which did make James and I laugh to a large extent. But of course, this is a common accusation made by Hindutva against any channel or any voice that happens to stand up and hold Narendra Modi, the BJP and the RSS to account, is of course the immediate default accusation, you're just funded by Pakistan or funded by ISI, the Pakistan intelligence services. Yeah, or even China. We've heard it all before. And that's exactly what they're trying to do about Amritpal Singh and, of course, War is Punjab Day, his organisation. Let's blame, they're funded by Pakistan. Again, it's part of a campaign. It's a tactic to try and turn ordinary Indians and ordinary Punjabis against them, saying, look, they're funded by the enemy. No, they're not. They're actually people from your own community who are trying to stand up and hold your own government to account. And of course, you're being manipulated against them by trying to make to believe that they're funded by Pakistan. No, they're not. They're just trying to stand up for democracy. It's as simple as that. So, final comment of the show. Jura Rai says, how Modi can be a peacemaker, James. Elected minorities MP Amritpal Singh, he's in jail. And I think this final comment says it all. Is that, if you stand up and try to hold the Indian government to account, if you stand up, indeed, even as an elected MP, where do you find yourself? In jail. So back to the old democracy argument, James. Is democracy alive and well in Punjab, would you say?
I would have to say no. And I think that comment there was in relation to, we were talking about the visits by Modi to Russia and to Ukraine, and, being a carrier pigeon of messages to try to bring peace. But no, I think that that's a very valid point that we were trying to make, is that there's an opportunity for him to help to bring peace, but no, we don't anticipate that he will.
Absolutely bang on. He bestrides the world stage as he claims a peacemaker, but unfortunately back at home, he's imprisoning his political opponents. That's not part of any democracy that we've ever heard of. But there we must draw the show to a close. Unfortunately, we have been beaten by time massively once again. But you have been watching Perspectives. Please don't forget to keep those comments coming in. We've got lots of shows lined up, as always, coming over the next few days. So get your comments coming in. We do like to talk about them. It gives us lots to talk about. Very educational, as always. Do let us know your thoughts and opinions. And, of course, do let us know of any news stories that you would like to bring to our attention that we might have otherwise have missed. Of course, if you don't want to put it in the comments, the public comments, you can email us directly at messages@satellitetv.com on anything that you'd like to send, and do send us a video or even a voice recording if there's anything you'd like us to broadcast on your behalf. We would be delighted to do that. But in the meantime, we must draw things to a close. It is a goodbye from me, and it is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you tomorrow.